combine is almost here, and I'm going to help you get ready for it. The NFL Combine is one of the marquee events of the draft season, of prospect analysis season, and it's coming up very quickly. It starts this week, and there's a lot to learn from the Combine. There's a lot to be ready for when it comes to the Combine. I'm kind of just going to go through how I approach it personally to help everybody out there be able to approach the Combine appropriately, measure how prospects do, rise through their ranks, dropping through the ranks, all those things. First, I think it's really important to have a good understanding of a lot of the prospects going into the Combine so you don't overreact to any performances while they're there. There's a lot of videos you could be watching here on the FastDraft channel, a lot of videos you could be watching on the Player Profiler channel to get acquainted with all the different prospects. There's also plenty of articles on playerprofiler.com to get yourself ready for the Combine, knowing these prospects a little bit going in, so you kind of know what to expect from them in general. So you don't see a performance and think like, wow, this guy's so good, not knowing he was supposed to be doing good in that drill. But anyways, let's get into what happens at the Combine. First things first, I think something that happens that's important is we get some final heights and weights for a lot of players. This is where we really find out how much a college might have been lying to us. One of my favorite ones I like to think of is Wan'Dale Robinson was measured in at 5'11" during college, and he comes into the Combine and he's 5'8". Usually it's not that drastic, but it happens. I mean, colleges and players consistently don't list their heights and weights 100% correctly. So getting those matters. I mean, when we think of a wide receiver who is, 6'3", 215, and they're really athletic, but they come in and they're much smaller than they say they were, like that changes their profile, right? Like, so we have to pay attention to what they really come in at. We also have to pay attention to if players are messing with their weight for the Combine. And what I mean by that is, like, I think everybody remembers Bryce Young coming into the Combine. There was talk that he's probably under 200 pounds, which is not great for a QB who has to be able to withstand some amount of punishment. And he comes in at the Combine and he's over 200 pounds, but he doesn't look like a 200-pound player. Like, in fact, one of my favorite things from that time is there's a picture of him and Kyler Murray next to each other. Now, Kyler Murray also short, but he's legit 200-pounder. He's pretty thick. And him and Bryce Young look like two different framed players. Like, Bryce Young looks so much smaller than Kyler Murray standing next to him. It's very obvious that they're not the same weight, even though that's what they weighed in basically the same at the Combine. So, like, be wary of stuff like that. Like, yeah, we knew Bryce Young really was not that weight. But another one is, like, I like to think of Tyrion Davis-Price, who in college was listed around like 230 pounds. When he played, he didn't look to be particularly explosive. And then he trimmed down his weight for the Combine, ran a faster 40 than it was expected, but he was at a lower weight, not his playing weight. So there are some things that you have to kind of read between the lines a little bit with this, when it comes to the heights and weights. But overall, it's really just kind of pinning down the real heights and weights and if that makes sense compared to what they were doing and the way we thought of them, or if, like, does it change their profile at all because of they're drastically different than what they said they were. Another thing is, don't double count any of this. And everyone says, don't double count. You hear a lot of the time this year, everybody's got their tweet ready to go to not double count any of the results. But it's true. When there's a player coming into the Combine who's known to be a very fast player and they run a very fast 40, so nothing matters. Who cares? Like, they were supposed to do that. Don't change your priors or how you feel about a player because they ran a fast 40. It does not change their evaluation. One that I think of, Anthony Richardson. We knew he was a physical freak coming into the Combine. That was one of the reasons why he was projected to go highly, and one of the reasons why I like him, because he was an insane athlete for the quarterback position. He gets to the Combine, he blows it up. One of the best athletes at QB ever. In fact, I believe he was the best QB athlete ever at the Combine. But none of that really mattered. It doesn't change his profile at all. He was expected to be an incredible athlete. We need to see him throwing the ball. Like, Anthony Richardson's profile was based in him being an incredible athlete. We needed to learn how he's progressing as a passer going into the NFL, and if he can learn, does he have the traits there? Him running an incredible 40 time and bench pressing and big vertical jump, none of that really mattered for Anthony Richardson. Some people, took it to heart and thought, wow, I can't wait to draft Anthony Richardson in my Dynasty rookie drafts because he's such a cool athlete, such a great athlete. And none of that really mattered. We knew that about him going in. So don't overreact when the player who's supposed to do something actually does that thing at the combine. Now, on the flip side of that, when a player fails to do the thing that we are expecting of him, that is something we should really pay attention to. One of the examples that I kind of always go back to is Kayshon Boutte when he got to the combine. Now, he had some off the field issues that contributed to his draft capital. So I'm recognizing that. But he gets to the combine and he tests terribly across the board. Now, he wasn't expected to be this exceptional athlete, but the way he tested makes you think, like, did he even train for this? Did he get prepared for the combine at all? Because the testing was so poor. And that makes you think, like, how is this person not ready for the combine? We're in a day and age in which these players have coaches helping them get ready for all the different tests that they're going to do at the combine. So when a player does so bad compared to what we think that they could do, it's a real red flag for me. And I think it, at least in part, contributed to Kayshon Boutte falling in the NFL draft. Now, luckily for him, it looks like he got himself together and really worked really hard to get back on the NFL field, and work to get there, and has done great things since doing so for the Patriots. But, he really hurt his career based on that combine performance, along with the off the field issues. I know. The last thing that I really want to talk about specific to the combine is the positional drills. And you don't have to be an expert film watcher to watch the positional drills and be able to take something away from it. They are doing things kind of made for you to be able to watch them and take something away from them. The quarterbacks, are they leading the wide receiver in the drills? Stuff like that. It's really simple. Like, are they throwing with good accuracy to lead the wide receiver? The running back drills, are they following the holes that the coaches out there are telling them to hit? And are they decisive with those? Are they hitting them quickly? Like, those are things that, like, the average football fan just kind of knows inherently from watching a bunch of football. You get to the combine drills, you might not be an expert in the drill, but you can watch it and have an idea of what's really supposed to be happening. The wide receiver drills, are they catching the ball away from their body? Are they going full extension with their arms to make sure that they're protecting against a defender, a would-be defender, things like that. Those, you can watch these drills even if you're not an expert film watcher and have a good idea of what should be happening in a lot of these drills and how players look in them. And then once you've kind of digested all this information from the NFL Combine, you can really start to solidify your Dynasty rookie rankings. Like I said, you should already have a really good idea about a lot of these prospects going in, so you don't get overwhelmed or overreact to any performances that you watch. But after the combine, we've got finalized numbers on these prospects. Basically after this, the only thing that's really going to come up that could change something are some pro days for players, which at this point, I understand there's a lot of players who don't actually participate in all the combine drills anymore. A lot of them are the top prospects. They don't really have anything to earn. They also don't really have anything to prove to us in those cases. Some players like to do their pro days and possibly improve upon the numbers they did at the combine. You always have to take those with a little bit of grain of salt when that happens. But for the most part, we're going to have all the information we can get before the NFL draft after the combine has happened. So you can take your rookie rankings that you've had, or maybe you didn't have before the combine, and really start to solidify where you want to have these players. And I think it's really important to do that before we get to the NFL draft, because while NFL draft capital is extremely important, it's definitely a part of the process. I think it's really important to have tiers of your rookie rankings going into the NFL draft before we get draft capital, so that you don't allow yourself to overreact to draft capital either. If a player looks really, really bad in all the information you're looking at before the NFL draft, but they get drafted higher than you'd expect, you don't want to overreact and move them up your rankings too much because of that draft capital. Move them up a little bit because of it. Sure, I understand that, but I'm going to try and keep them within the tier that I had him to begin with based on the evaluation I had before the draft. Because it's also important to remember that a lot of NFL teams are drafting players based on specific roles that they think they will do for their offense or for their team, not necessarily for fantasy, We see this with wide receivers most often, I think, where there's wide receivers who provide special teams. Like Tyquan Thornton, when he got drafted in the second round, no one saw it really coming, but he added special teams value. He also was a very fast wide receiver who could take the top off of defense. That provides a role on an offense. I'm not saying it was a good pick when Tyquan Thornton was picked, but that's why players like that can go higher than expected. So it's important to have that evaluation before we ever get to the NFL draft. So when draft capital happens, it can help solidify what we've already been thinking, and we don't overreact to it one way or another. I really appreciate all of you for joining me here today. Make sure you have liked and subscribed if you have not yet. Sign up to FastDraft with code Wyatt to get a first-time deposit match. Get drafting all the tournaments over there, the Rabbit Draft, the Origins Draft. Rookie rankings right now are live on playerprofiler.com, so you can check those out. Help yourself and get familiar with all these prospects using all the content we have between Player Profiler and FastDraft. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at YB_FF. I appreciate it all. And I'll see you next time.